Now, ladies and gentlemen, here we are going to begin with the first panel discussion. And we are going to discuss on the future plans and new metering technologies deployed by the utilities. And I would take the opportunity first to welcome Mr. Sudheer Singh, ET Energy Moderator. We have 4 panelists for this session. The first, welcome Mr. C.K. Srinath, DGM, SG and EV BESCOM, Mr. T. Srinivas, Director Projects, Telangana South, Mr. A.K. Tyagi, Chief Projects, Jaipur Vidyut, and the last panelist, Mr. Mohan Reddy, Director Projects, Telangana North. A warm welcome to each and everybody, and now I would request the moderator to please take it forward. Over to you, sir.
Hello, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you, and a very warm welcome on this platform today. I'm Sudheer, and this is a panel discussion on the topic future plans and new metering technologies deployed by the utilities. With an eminent set of panelists, and the panelists have already been introduced. That includes Mr. Srinivas, Mr. Gowda, Mr. Tyagi, Mr. Reddy. A very eminent and knowledgeable set of experts in their domain that we have today. Let me say that this discussion will be conducted in 2 parts, and in the first part, we will pose a common question to all the panelists. We'll basically try and understand how do they look at the current state of affairs in this entire space, in the space of smart metering technologies for utilities. And in the second part, we will put specific questions to the panelists based on their own background or their expertise or areas of work. Let me begin this discussion by asking Mr. Srinivas. He's here, Director Projects, Telangana South. How do you look at the entire space of smart metering? And what's your sense? Where do we stand currently, and what exactly is the state of affairs here?
Yes, I am Mohan Reddy.
Yes, Mr. Reddy. Welcome on our discussion today. Let's begin this discussion with you. Telangana State Northern Power Distribution Company. Can you tell us, and you are among those managers and experts who look at this space on a very, very routine basis. And so I want to understand from you, what is the current state of affairs in the smart metering space currently for utilities? Where do utilities generally stand? What is lacking? What are we trying to achieve? And where do we stand currently? Mostly.
Now, at present, in our DISCOM, nearly 3.5 million connections are available, consumers, and our area operates 60,202 square meters of this one. Our operation will be more or less almost rural area. And now, as of now, we don't have any smart metering projects now. And we are looking to go for smart metering, but there are some problems are there. Main thing is our area consists of rural background. That there is a connectivity problems is there. Most of the connectivity problem, if we install the smart meters, and the smart meters may not communicate to the server, and it may not possible to read the meter. That is the main drawback in our area. How we to overcome this one? And another second thing is most of thing, and the economics is also more important. Our average revenue per connection is around less than 200 rupees per month. If we go for smart metering, we have to pay the meter rent, we have to pay the charges to the integrator, and these all things will come in this one. If we get an financially external support, either government of India or state government supports, we cannot go for install this one. For installation of total 3.5 millions at the rate of 4,000 per node, it works about around 1,400 crores of finance is required. And another thing is here, the integrator problem. The integrator may operate the system for 4 or 5 years like that. After that, what will be the problem? The DISCOM may not have that much of capacity to handle the smart meters and other things. How it is possible to handle these all things should questions are coming in mind. And anyhow, the government of India is pushing to go forward for smart meter. And we will try to implement at least in towns in the first phase. Later on, we'll think of in other rural areas. That is the thing.
Yeah, Mr. Mohan, you talked about, it's a very interesting angle. And the first question that comes to our mind when we talk about smart metering, is the cost justifiable, right? So there's a very strong debate around that. People say that, it's costly technology, and ultimately, like most technologies, it comes at a heavy cost. And, DISCOMs are already saddled with a lot of, burden. So how do you address that issue? How do you want to respond to that, that traditional debate that we have? Whenever we try to adopt a new technology, as against that, there's always financial matters. We are always facing constraints. So how do you try to find a solution for that problem?
Now, as of now, this the government of India has given around 3.5 crore funds allotted for the power sector. Out of this one, the government is focusing or promoting installation of the smart meters. They want to finance or subsidy around 15%. But in the deliberation, we told that 15% is not sufficient. It is to be extended up to 50%. The government yet to take decision on this one. Once the government gives more subsidy for installation of this smart meters, and we can progress it, and we can try to implement it certain areas, and the benefits will be also more. And more, another thing is that this already we have installed the IRDA meter. The IRDA meter, that is with manual intervention, we are reading the meter without manual intervention. And we are giving the bill instantaneously to the consumer. And our collection efficiency is almost 100%, and the billing efficiency is also 100%. And if we don't find any additional gains by smart metering and this one.
Okay. We also have Mr. C.K. Srinath. He is the DGM for SG and EV in BESCOM. Warm welcome to you on this platform, Mr. Srinath. And if you can turn your video on. Okay. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Srinath, and good morning to you. I want to understand from you, like we want to discuss with all other panelists, as far as BESCOM is concerned, how do we, what's your understanding and what's your sense of the current state of affairs in the entire smart metering, as far as the entire smart metering initiative is concerned, and where do we stand today? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sudheer, for warm welcome, and good morning to all the panelists. So it's really, I'm very glad to be part of this panel discussing such an important subject, which is also the need of the hour in the present scenario. So, as introduced, I'm Srinath, working as the Deputy General Manager, heading Smart Grids and Electric Vehicle section in BESCOM. A brief introduction about the company. BESCOM is a government electric utility company which operates in 8 districts in southern region of Karnataka, which is one of the progressive company in the country. Let me begin with the opening remarks that the power sector has undergone tremendous changes in the last decade, particularly in transmission generation as well as in universal access to the consumers. So Government of India is assisting all the state DISCOMs in a great way through various programs like RAPDRP, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, Gram Jyoti Yojana, IPDS, so on and so forth. And efforts are also made to bring in the automation as well as the information and technology. Despite all these measures, we have not achieved giving quality power supply to all the consumers in the country. See here, the key is 24/7 power supply and quality supply. This is primarily because of the structural deficiencies and aging infrastructure, since it's a dynamic in nature. So there is a need to revamp the entire infrastructure to make the distribution utilities financially more stable, operationally more efficient. So one such digital intervention that can happen to achieve this objective is definitely the advanced metering infrastructure. So as we call smart metering. So AMI is an integrated system of smart meters, communication network, and data management, which enables the two-way communication between the consumer and the utility, and it has got various advantages. I do not go into the details of the advantages because all the panelists are learned panelists are very well aware of the advantages. With all this background, Government of India has come out with one more very important scheme, that is reforms-based and result-linked distribution sector scheme. So unlike any other scheme, any other previous schemes, here the keywords are reforms-based and result-linked. So unless we show the results, so we may not be in a position to move to the next stage. So this entire program is spread over a period of 3 years, and we are expected to complete the entire project to meet the objective of bringing down the AT&C and T&D loss less than 15%, bringing down the difference between the average cost of supply and the average revenue realization to zero, and to bring the institutional capability. So we are in a almost final stage of the reforms, and smart metering is also considered as a basic reform now for the digital intervention. So which gives visibility of the entire consumer base, and it has got many advantages. See, as far as the challenges are concerned, challenges are formidable. So it can be surmounted into advantages. So we can definitely convert those challenges and opportunities into our advantages to serve the consumer in a better way. So obviously the theme of any DISCOM would be to serve the consumer in a better way. The challenges first I see is the business model that an utility should adopt. So though there are many drivers from the central government, see it has come up in the budget. So finance minister made a statement previous 2 years. So how important it is to make a transition to smart metering. So we have, but still state DISCOMs have not gone for this smart metering in a big way. So the previous panelist, gentleman spoke about, he articulated about the financial support that is extended. So though there is financial support to an extent of 15%, so what about the 85%? Once the system integrator has delivered as per the objective, I have to pay ultimately. So of course there will be savings, we are sure, because it is demonstrated in various pilot projects. So though there are savings, we are not sure. So till such time, there is a need from the regulator to support the state DISCOMs by allowing us to include those work capex in the MYT, that is multi-year tariff scheme. So in fact, we had a detailed discussion with the Honorable Energy Secretary a couple of times previous week. We also wrote to them. We also highlighted about the challenges that BESCOM has gone through. So we have been making attempts to get the permission of the regulator for the last 1.5 years, but still it did not happen. So regulator is taking a stand that since it involves capex, so there should not be any tariff shock to the consumers. So that is the main stand. So the policy advocacy, regulatory intervention is the key. So once we begin, there will be other deployment challenges. The supply chain, though we have a good number of manufacturers in the country, I believe in the BAS website I could find minimum 9 certified smart meter manufacturer who are certified with IS 16444 certificate. So supply chain, once all the state DISCOMs take off in a big way, so supply chain needs to be planned in a better way. So this is the thought that came to me initially. Thank you.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Srinath. Thanks for those really great comments, and you're talking about a lot of really important things: business model, technology, supply chain. All of these topics are really important. It's important for us to discuss them threadbare. Before we do that, we have Mr. Ashok Tyagi, from Jaipur with the and welcome to you, Mr. Tyagi, on this platform. A very warm welcome to you, and good morning. Let me ask you too, what are your initial thoughts on smart metering? Where do we stand currently? What exactly, according to you, is the state of affairs, in this entire space? Collectively at a level of DISCOMs, where do DISCOMs stand, and particularly from Jaipur Vidyut point of view also? How are things panning out for smart metering?
Okay, good morning, everybody. as you told, I am from the Jaipur DISCOM in Rajasthan. We are already implementing smart metering projects, one under IPDS scheme and other is under NSGM scheme. And about 4.2 lakhs meter are being installed at the cost of above than 300 crores. This scheme was rolled out. Initially, the pace was slow, but now we have installed more than 60,000 meters. And due to pandemic, the pace of installation of meter is slow. But we hope that as the things are improving, we will be able to complete this project by March 2020. As regard to the other metering, DT meter and feeder meter are also the projects we have taken up for energy audit at DT level and energy audit at feeder level. Also the monitoring the quality of supply to consumers, trippings, voltage level, etc. So we are doing a lot to improve the metering infrastructure as well as to improve the supply to the consumers. But as Mr. Mohan Reddy told, the smart meter is a very ambitious project, and most of the DISCOM, I'm not talking about the private DISCOM, those are catering mostly the urban area. The most of DISCOMs has plenty of rural area, small consumers, their paying capacity and all these things is there. We have around 44 lakhs consumers in Jaipur DISCOM area, and out of that, 34 lakhs are domestic consumers. And out of this 34 lakhs, 24 lakhs consumers use 100 units per month or less. So this big chunk of consumer, when I install a smart meter there, what I'm going to get from that? I mean, neither they can plan their consumption, and also the cost of maintaining a big AMI infrastructure will be very much. So we have to think about, in the phased manner, we should implement it, and first we should take the urban area or high value consumers. That would be more appropriate. But what we think, what we see, and Mr. Srinath has also told, the central government is pursuing the scheme for smart meter and new revamped scheme also, that all the consumers should be converted to smart meters. So this is big ambitious, but it will be a burden to the states. How they will manage it? The 85% what the state has to finance of this project, that will be loaded to the consumer. Whether the regulator will allow this thing to be covered from the tariff, it will further burden the this utility as well as also consumers. Moreover, the whole benefit, actually this smart metering is in the initial stage. Every state is doing some projects. Few are big projects, few are small projects, but still we don't have consensus about the technology as well as the infrastructure what we are going to develop and how it will maintain. Initially, the system integrator will do. But what about when the things will be handed over to the utility after the project? How it will be managed? So we have to think about that also before finalizing, before moving ahead. In our DISCOM, we have decided that we will implement this infrastructure, this AMI infrastructure in a phased manner. First, we will cover the big cities. In the second phase, we will cover the municipal towns. And in the third stage, we will cover the small consumers in the far scattered area. By the time, we hope that we will have enough experience and this mature technology to cater all the consumers. As regard to challenges, as already Mr. Srinath has told, but biggest challenge nowadays is the cyber security, then integration with the existing infrastructure, IT infrastructure of the utility. These are big challenges, and we have to develop in-house capabilities in the utility to tackle those things. And it may take some time. It cannot be done, or we cannot depend on the private or some outsourced person for this. So we have to develop the capability in the utility itself. Moreover, when we are implementing this, I have faced many challenges. The consumer don't know what benefit I am going from this smart meter. It is very difficult to convince him that we are removing your existing meter and installing a new meter. And it will give you real-time monitoring of your consumption. It will give you the how much energy you are consuming, and you can plan in a better way. But that much awareness is missing among the consumers. They are not bothered much about this, because the high value consumers, they are bothered. The industrial consumer, they are very much conscious about it. But domestic consumers or small consumers, they need much more education regarding this. Also, we have to tackle one very important thing, the political issues. The local leaders, they create problem and they find it opportunity to oppose any program, new program. And they motivate the people to stop this program, because by this, the utility have more monitoring over their consumption. They will be more risk, because every day utility will watch their consumption, their financial bill condition, how much they have paid. So they create misconception. So we need a strong political will also to implement this program. Then we have, for implementing this, we have to implement this interoperability issue also required. Because when we have developed some infrastructure, AMI infrastructure, we should think that for future infrastructure, it should be utilized. It should be interoperable. But in the present scenario, we are missing this thing. Because when we take some HES system from a particular supplier, then in next phase, we are bound to have that HES also. If we don't have, then as in the previous case, the different CMRIs were used for downloading different meters, we will have the same situation that different HES are required for reading the different meters. So all these factors to be taken into account before rolling out the program, and a cost-benefit analysis, particularly for the state utilities, is to be done to take care of all these issues.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tyagi. Very, very relevant comments there. Very relevant comments. And I think, most of the, people on this panel will perhaps agree with the kind of challenges you're talking about, whether you're talking about basically lack of awareness among consumers, and there's a lack of political will. And all of this is coming at a time when we are implementing a new technology, which is not just costly, but it also requires system upgradation, infrastructure upgradation. So it's a difficult job when people are not aware of the basics, and it makes your job very, very difficult. But no doubt, let me, before we discuss these things in more detail, and, we have Mr. Kamesh also from Telangana South. Mr. Kamesh, can we have your views very quickly on, how do you, everybody has so far shared their views.
Good morning to you all.
Good morning, good morning.
Thank you for calling me for the panel.
Yeah.
And of course, as Director NPDCL has clearly insisted on the financial conditions of the DISCOMS, and also service orientation towards customers, and also based on the opinions of our Mr. Tyagi Gujarat, because he's already been serving with all for at least 40,000, 4 lakhs consumers. And in my opinion, we have already taken care of some pilot project now. We are implementing it for 8,000 meters for the industrial sector, and as well as to the domestic sector in a mixed way. So we have incurred cost of 35 crores in this project. Of course, we are running it perfectly. The service orientation, in my opinion, should be towards the customer, firstly. Then only this will be accepted as widely. And the customer orientation services shall be updated into this. For example, if a supply fails to the customer, for example, in a 3-phase meter, one single phase has gone out. Without observation by the customer, we can know here in our control room. That's the best service we can render to the customer indirectly without even noticed by the customer. So if the customer orientation is upgraded into the smart grid, as well as the cost per service, we are going to increase towards the investment of the meters, towards the network, and also to have the cost inculcation for the AMCs, and also towards maintenance part of the smart grid. We need to have the separate wing for this to monitor entire thing. So this all is a heavy burden to the DISCOMs, no doubt, because we are not in a good position with the finance and all. When we want to implement the smart grid, we need to go for a better service towards customer as well as a better position towards our financial. That is most important, I feel so. And of course, I suggest you to have a good meter with the unique parameters to all over the India, so that we can have better protocols. I mean to say, the common protocols to the meter should be provided, so that we can have a better competition between the meter manufacturer, and also we can get a lower cost of meter. And one more thing I want to have this is the cost per service should be so decreased, so that we can have a better involvement, better investment, and also we can go with the smart grid. There is a lot of benefits are there in the smart grid. At the same time, we have to incur so much of investments. It is most important. That is my opinion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kamesh. Thank you for those initial comments. Very nice. Let me ask Mr. Mohan here. He has been listening to the comments from the other panelists. I want to understand from you, some really relevant and important issues that have been raised: lack of awareness, lack of political will, lack of an understanding of what should be the business model that we should follow, lack of and all of this has to happen when there is we need robust infrastructure in place already, on top of which you can build modern technology. But there are places, there are times where we lack the basic infrastructure also is not there in place. And like Mr. Kamesh was saying, financial state of utilities is not really great at a lot of places. So how do you reconcile all of these challenges, and move forward in this project? Have you also in your areas faced issues of the kind that Mr. Tyagi was talking about? That's one. And also, what are your views on technology? There are multiple technologies available, and there is a currently debate going on in the entire space, the entire business, the market that we have for smart meters, cellular versus non-cellular, etc., etc. What's your view there?
The economics is more important for any DISCOMs for installation for going forward to the smart metering. The economics are the most important for any DISCOM to go forward for the smart metering. Are you hearing?
Yes. You're visible. You're visible and you're audible. Yes.
So, okay. And we cannot go big way immediately due to the financial position of the DISCOMs. And phased manner, we can go ahead. And for high value consumer or towns, for the first phase, we can go for this one. If the government supports some financially, we can go forward. And I told one thing, that is the communication is the main problem. Some of the rural areas, how the other DISCOMs are overcoming this communication on this one. Already we are implementing the AMI for the feeder meters. That is substation feeder meters we are implementing, but we are getting only 60% of the meters we are able to read, and the rest of the 40% we are unable to read it. That is a communication problem is there. How that is overcoming by other DISCOMs, that is the main important, my.
Okay, Mr. Srinath, let me ask you at this point, I want to understand from you, what are the different technology choices that we have, which are available, and which one of them, according to you, is the best suited from a DISCOM utility point of view? Also on technology part first, and what should be the ideal business model? Because like Mr. Tyagi was also saying, and Mr. Kamesh is also saying, there are a lot of difficulties in implementing projects like this, right? Where the cost is slightly likely to be higher. At the same time, on consumer side, there is no awareness. So how do you account for the ROI there? So the business model has to be robust. So technology and business model, yes.
There are a couple of proven technologies globally which are prevalent. We could see the RF mesh technology, so which has a star as well as the mesh technology, and the cellular technology and the PLC. So broadly, it can be classified into three major technologies that is available. As far as the PLC is concerned, I think initially it is shut down in the country. They took up a small pilot project at Panipat, if I remember correctly, and also at Puducherry. Because of certain drawbacks like a lack of standards for the meters in the country, so that may not take off in the near future. So whereas this technology is very prevalent in the France and other couple of European countries. The other two technologies, that is RF mesh and cellular. Cellular is also evolving. Now we are moving towards the NB-IoT. In fact, we carried out a small study pilot project in the neighborhood of Bangalore city. So with RF mesh as well as GPRS technology. So it all depends on the site conditions. In cities like any metropolitan cities like Bangalore, where we have many high-rise buildings in which the meters are located in the cellular floor, level 1, level 2 sometimes. So in those cases, the cellular technology may not be ideal. So ideally, what we feel is it should be a hybrid technology depending on the site condition. So hybrid in the sense, say, if you move towards the rural areas, the installations are scattered. So the economy of adopting RF mesh technology, it's not feasible when the installations are scattered. However, when we have the cluster of installations in village limits as well as in the township or the city, RF works out to be better economically. So, but in BESCOM, we are of the view that we should not specify the technology. For the reason, we have these service level agreements in place. It's also notified in the Central Electricity Authority document. So we have decided to go with stipulating the system integrator to adhere to the service level agreements. I'm not worried whether he is adopting the RF mesh or the cellular or whatever it is, and since PLC is not going to be there in the country in the present scenario, so obviously he'll go.
If the overall standards are met, then we don't have to worry about the technology.
Yes, exactly, and we also have standards for these meters. See, what I feel personally is we should have a robust technical specification. It should not be vendor driven. And we should also look at the communication module with the standard pin configuration, which can fit into meters of different manufacturers, so that the interoperability among different manufacturers is addressed. So that is very, very critical. So once we have, in fact, the National Smart Grid Mission NSGM has notified a standard bid document. So what we have done in BESCOM is we have taken that as reference, and also IEC standard, IS standard, and we are drafting our own technical specification in such a way that the meter has to last for at least 10 years. We have been changing the meters for quite some time. Earlier it was electromechanical, then high precision, then static meter, DLMS complaint. So DISCOMs are sick of replacing the meters very frequently. So this solution should last at least for next 10 years. So that there will not be any financial burden on the consumer, both on the consumer as well as the DISCOMs. As far as the technology view is concerned, this is our stand. And the business model, so there are primarily three business models. One, CapEx model, and hybrid model, and OpEx model. So given the present scenario, I am sure no state DISCOMs are in a position to go for the CapEx model, because it calls for huge upfront investment. Hybrid business model is also a bit difficult. So unless we get some sovereign loan, so it's very hard to mobilize the funds. So earlier we thought of going to hybrid model with 30% capex and 70% opex, but that did not work out well because of the pandemic situation. So we have landed with ultimately the OPEX model. OPEX model is very advantageous to DISCOMS initially because there is no upfront investment. But nevertheless, we have to pay the system integrator once the project is successfully completed, once the meters are communicating, once it is integrated, we have to pay per meter per month. For that, I need finance. So maybe OPEX model is likely to be adopted largely by the state DISCOMs with financial support from the Ministry of Power. Over to you.
Okay. Yeah, Srinath, one more question that I wanted to ask you. Mr. Tyagi talked about lack of awareness, but then that's Jaipur, right? And you are in Bangalore, and I want to understand, do you see a difference there in terms of level of awareness? Do you also see a difference in terms of political will to implement a project like that? And thirdly, when we implement a project like this, you are saying that it won't necessarily immediately amount to increase in tariff for consumers. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, as long as there is no increase on the retail tariff, consumers would be very happy. And since there are many advantages when we go for the digital intervention of the consumers with the consumer, such as, for example, the consumer with a mobile application, he will be in a position to know the exact consumption on daily basis or during a particular period. It can also be used as the prepaid meter and net metering. Prepaid meter will be very advantageous both to the DISCOMs as well as to the consumer. For the DISCOMs, it will be advantageous because I'll be getting money in advance. It reduces my working capital. Even if 30% of the consumers are converted into prepaid consumers, so there will be a huge financial benefit to BESCOMs to reduce their working capital. And even for the consumers, they can track their consumption. They can plan the consumption accordingly with the DSM measures like time of the day. So they would be in a better position to conserve the energy. And also, this may appear a bit futuristic. The peak load management, when we have time of the day regime in future, so we can send the pricing signal to the consumer so that he can participate in the peak load management by curtailing the sum of the load for which he will be getting the incentive. At the same time, DISCOMs can defer the capital investment for augmenting their infrastructure. So I could see a lot of advantages to the DISCOMs, to the society, and also to the consumers. For the societal benefits, it will reduce the carbon footprint. We can avoid the mundane process like manual reading. Where here the meter reader is visiting the locations, taking the reading, and there could be error, and there could be some manipulation also. Even for the consumer grievance redressal, if there is an outage, we will come to know because of this last gasp and first breath feature in the smart meter. We can also send the message alert to them that there is going to be an outage, or if there is an outage soon it will restore. So such advantages I could see very much in the smart metering.
Thank you for those great comments, Srinath. Mr. Tyagi, let me ask you. You're talking about constraints like infrastructure problems. So two questions I have. First of all, what according to you, when a DISCOM or when a utility is trying to go for implementation of smart metering projects, how should it prepare itself, right, in terms of readiness of the infrastructure which is already in place, right? What should be the initial level of preparedness for utilities? That's one. And what are the other problems that your DISCOM typically faces in these projects? Yeah.
Well, as regard to this infrastructure problems, the biggest infrastructure problem is that when we are replacing meters, installing smart meters, we are removing the existing healthy meters from the system. So we have to plan where these healthy meters which are being removed, where they be utilized, because some of them may be under the guarantee period itself. So that we have to plan that our infrastructure in the phased manner we should go, that the meters being removed should be utilized in the area where we are not using AMI project. So that planning should be there. Second thing, that we have to train our manpower to tackle this new technology, to understand its benefits so that they can educate the consumers down the line. So our linemen, our junior engineers, our down the line person should also be trained in this infrastructure development. Thirdly is because the technical, this IT based technology is there, and most of the DISCOM has IT knowledge lacking. They are lacking in IT knowledge to implement it, and they are dependent on the outsource vendors. So we have to develop in-house IT knowledge to maintain and to run these projects. So this will definitely reduce this burden on the employees, as well as increase the acceptability. These are the basic hurdles. We have to plan this using the removed infrastructure, removed meters, removed other equipments in the other areas. That is a big question. Also, what my experience is that we have installed around 60,000 meters so far, smart meters. But very few consumers are ready to convert this into the prepaid mode. And my thinking is that until and unless smart meters are not run in the prepaid mode, we will not get its full benefit. But to convince the consumer to get it in the prepayment mode, it is a difficult thing. Although the central government is pressing for installing all smart meter in prepaid mode, but there is no mandate, this regulatory mandate also in the act. We have to take the permission of the consumer. His consent is required. So we cannot force him. So we have to think about this also. These are the basic challenges.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Tyagi. Mr. Mohan, if you can hear me, I would like to respond. I would like to take your response to some of the really important things Mr. Tyagi is saying here. Things like, for example, taking the consumers, permission for prepaid, and we all of us know that what a challenge it can be. Prepaid metering can be a lot of challenge. Particularly because we are living in a system where people even today, a lot of consumers think that they don't have to pay for electricity, right? We have states like Delhi where it's free of charge. It's free of cost. It's a commodity that you don't have to it's not charged properly. So in that kind of a situation, we're talking about prepaid metering, right? Do you also face these kind of issues? Firstly. And secondly, if you can share some details of the kind of projects or the larger investment plans that your utility particularly has, and it's a very important utility, from the point of view of smart metering.
And the installation of new generation meters is always there from the consumer side. In our DISCOM also, we have faced the same problem. But however, we have replaced all old electromechanical meter nowadays, that is IRDN meters. And now we are reading the meters without manual intervention, and with spot billing machine, we are reading the meter and we are issuing the bill. However, to shift from this electronic meter to smart metering and there may be a big challenge, but however, with the consumer education and other thing, we can overcome. There may not much resistance from in our DISCOM, that is the thing. And we are planning is as per government rules, and if the government extends finances in the new reform scheme, revamped results-oriented scheme, we are going to implement in towns at a first phase. Later, we will think of other rural areas. And the value may be around 1 lakh consumers. We are trying to plan for installation of this meter. And subject to that is availability of funds or support from the government of India. And later by gaining the experience from in the town area, and later on we will extend to the rural areas also.
Okay. Mr. Mohan, Mr. Srinath talked about technology in detail, the different technology options available for DISCOMs. And he also talked about how, they have taken the decision at their own level to be technology agnostic, right? To basically specify the conditions of service that are to be there in the tender. What's your view there? How are you, or how is your utility, tackling that issue? Are we specifying a particular technology? If not, are we also following a similar model? To what extent that is important, and how are you tackling it?
So good, Srinivas has told that is a BESCOM area. It is an urban area, and most of the communication levels will be good, and they may be reading, they may be implementing the RF and cellular modes also. But particularly now we are for the feeder metering, we are implementing the cellular mode, and that is the communication is around 60%. And the RF mesh mode we are not operating. But in our state, the government is implementing the rural fiber grid network they are going to install. That is the entire all villages will be connected through fiber cable. And at one point of that is a Gram Panchayat or village office, it will be connected. From all, by utilizing that fiber grid optic cable, we can overcome some of the communication problems in rural area also. And in the first phase, we want to do interconnect this feeder and DT meter in that mode. Later, we will think of to connect the consumer meters to that grid. Once it is completed, the fiber grid laying cable is completed. That is our option.
Okay. Mr. Kamesh, let me come to you on this point. And again, two questions for you. First of all, I want you to talk about the larger, any specific projects or investment plans that the utility has. What exactly is being planned as far as your utility is concerned on smart metering?
Yeah. Thank you for our director's vision and CMD's vision. We want to have the entire system in one go, maybe in a phased manner, with the smart meters, all smart meters, even to the agricultures. But it may take some time. Of course, there is a big change management is required, even from the government side, and because of the funds and all. And from regulators side, ERC should be enforced to give some regulations now. And both they should act immediately, and so that we can go for a new technology. And because of the cooperation from customer is very much important here. And we need, as our Tyagi and Srinivas told, we need to have the prepaid meters in force. So for that purpose, we need to have a regulation saying that all smart meters of commercial sector should be prepaid. That would be the better, this one. We have to push it. Otherwise, we cannot go ahead with the smart meter. Because, for example, earlier, before 6-7 years back, this TV setup boxes were introduced. That was clearly pushed to the system. Otherwise, nobody has actually taken up. That's how we need to have the system to be pushed from the top management, of course, from the government itself. And we need to have a better cost per service to implement these smart meters in our DISCOMS. Because we got a mixed customers oriented sectors, where we need to have the lowest cost per service should be available with us. And as our Srinivas sir also told about the manufacturing protocols to the meters, so that we'll have better interoperability between meters, and also with the integration to any smart solution, so that we don't have to put up more and more investments for each and every application or for each and every protocols. That is the most important one. And also, because the AMCs and all will be involved in this situation, we have to train up our own people, first of all. And we need to have the better infrastructure through our own. Then only the DISCOMS like our companies will flourish with this smart metering. Otherwise, the cost will be going up, and the customer is not ready to pay in this scenario. So we need to have the lowest price, the most available tariff to the customer, then only it is acceptable. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So we are talking about lowest tariff, charging the lowest tariff for these projects. Otherwise, it will not be, attractive for consumers. Mr. Srinath, would you agree with that view? Where do you think we should have the tariff placed? And have you already taken decision on that front? What should be the ideal tariff to strike a balance between what the consumer needs, what is attractive for consumer, and at the same time what is financially viable for the DISCOM, right? So that's one. And I also want to understand from you, from a regulatory point of view or a policy point of view, do we have the entire landscape in place, or are there more changes required, whether it is at the central level or at the state level? These two questions, if you can answer. It may be slightly difficult to answer the tariff question, perhaps.
Yeah, that was there at the back of my mind when you posed that question to me. But nevertheless, see, we have something called the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, CERC, so which works in tandem with the Ministry of Power. So ultimately, it is the Ministry of Power who drives these kind of national level programs. So with the main objective of bringing down the AT&C losses. So that is the larger picture that any government would look at. See, to bring down the losses, so what is needed to be done? We are in a kind of chicken and egg situation. So the state DISCOMs are not they are not very well placed as far as the finances are concerned because of various inherent limitations that they are entangled with. There is a need of a great support from the government and also the regulator through policy advocacy and regulatory intervention. See, whatever we do, whatever the state DISCOMs proposes, ultimately it has to be approved by the regulator. So we have something called smart grid regulations issued by CERC way back in 2014, sorry. And the same regulations are adopted more or less by all the state DISCOMs, which stipulates that any investment beyond 10 crores needs to be approved by the regulator. So there is it's a roadblock to any DISCOM. So whatever the proposal we send, so unless we justify to the core, so there is a lot of apprehension from the regulator side that it will result in the tariff share. What I could see, it's of my personal opinion that initially there should be a support from the government financially, and we are very sure through various pilot projects and the global experience, there is a lot of benefits by implementation of the smart metering. And in BESCOM, we have a consumer base of around 12 million, serving 20 million consumers. Of course, it is not just urban area. So Bangalore city is a major chunk with around 60 lakhs of consumers. So remaining 7 district cities predominantly rural area, and we have many districts who have which has predominant irrigation pump sets. So that's also a major problem. So what I feel is there should be support from the government, and once these benefits are realized through the savings, we can pass it on to the consumer. There is a possibility that once we get a lot of savings, we can inform the regulator. So this is the savings I got. So it can be on the reversal of the tariff also. So I could see a lot of possibility in that. See, many of the state DISCOMs are in pole position. They are in a position to implement this smart metering technology. Of course, there are technical challenges like regulatory intervention, deployment, supply chain integration, cybersecurity, interoperability. But all these challenges can be surmounted. We can overcome all these challenges. And there is an indication with our limited interaction with the MOP that they are planning to revise the recently introduced guidelines, and they may support for the Amrut cities. So there is something called Amrut, that is Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. So if that decision is taken, I think it is fair enough, because all the DISCOMs will have at least 5 to 6 Amrut cities, which will cover minimum 50 to 60% of their consumer base. To begin with, so if these cities are taken, and the area where the AT&C loss comparatively more, compared to the urban area. If it is more than 15%, we can implement the smart metering there, prove it that it is going to give a lot of benefits, and slowly extend it to other parts, so that in 3 years of time, as envisaged in the guidelines, so the entire consumer base of an utility can be covered, and we can reap the benefits out of this in a great way.
Thank you, Srinath, for that really great comment. And I think the discussion is over, and I want to thank all the panelists for the comments they have made, and how they've contributed to this discussion. It's time for us to take a few questions from the audience also, and I will ask the audience. I will encourage the audience to put their questions to us as soon as possible on whatever, or even feedback if they have any. So one question, for example, we have is on the OPEX model, right? What should be the ideal model? So we are asked whether the OPEX model with stringent SLA, service level agreement, is it beneficial for DISCOMS, or we should go for a different model? That's one of the, and I remember Mr. Srinath was talking about the model there. But let me put that question to Mr. Ashok Tyagi, if he can answer that. What should be the ideal model, and whether the OPEX model with stringent SLA is beneficial for DISCOMS?
Well, definitely OPEX model is the best model for looking to the conditions of the DISCOM, financial condition of the DISCOM. And if we have stringent SLA, then OPEX model is the best model in the present scenario. But the OPEX player to implement this AMI solution are very limited. We have seen only ESL is the only one player. So there is a monopoly there. So we have to develop, ministry has to create some environment so that more players should be there to compete. Otherwise, there is a monopoly of the ESL only. OPEX model is the best, but we have to think about the players should be more, so that better choice, better competition, and we can get the best output.
Yeah, okay. That's very rightly said, no doubt. Mr. Srinath, any comments on that?
Yeah, to add what Mr. Ashok Tyagi has said, so he has rightly pointed out that OPEX model is no doubt it is beneficial to DISCOM, state DISCOM. But we do not have a single example other than ESL. We do not have even on a small scale, any system integrator coming in and supporting the DISCOM by taking up this OPEX model. So this is where we are stuck with. So there has to be some solution, at least a small percentage of the consumer base has to be taken up for implementation to prove the technology. See, and the efficacy at which the project is implemented elsewhere by ESL, so it is debatable. And moreover, there should not be a kind of monopoly as far as choosing the technology is concerned. Though they have one more SPV by name IntelliSmart, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it is, right. Yes, it is yet to take off. So, and moreover, one agency will not be in a position to support the project pan country. So there has to be more player, and without private participation, it is very hard to realize the objective of the government, for which they have to come out with certain encouraging policies for the wide participation of the technically competent private parties, private players rather.
Yeah, right. That's very rightly said. And do the rest of the panelists do they want to comment on this point, or should we wrap it up? So fine. So I think this brings us to an end of this really exciting and engaging discussion. And I want to thank all the panelists for the time they have devoted to this discussion. It's a very important topic, and I believe we can just go on and on. It's a very interesting topic also. We can go on and on discussing it, but then time is short, and we have to wrap it. Thanks for your time, panelists, and we really look forward to hosting you again on this platform. Thank you. Please carry on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.